So the other day, running back Philly and I were chopping it up about the Sixers, just talking about how garbage of a season this has been and what they should do moving forward. And because the Sixers are so irrelevant, we eventually started to talk about March Madness and how fun it has been watching this tournament and how this draft class is really shaping up to be one of the better ones in recent memory, having a lot of really intriguing prospects. Of course, you got your Cooper Flags and Ace Baileys, Dalen Harper, Con Knipple, Malu Watch, a 7'2" center, Trey Johnson, VJ Edgecombe, a lot of really good guys, and it's shaping up to be one of the better NBA draft classes. And yeah, of course it will, because this might be a season where the Sixers won't even be able to make their lottery pick, because it is a top 6 protected pick that will go to the OKC Thunder. If it falls out of the top 6, I really hope that does not happen, because the draft lottery's on my birthday, and that would just suck so much. And the Sixers, a lot of bad things have happened to this team, and that is the last thing we need. We got to salvage something out of this garbage season. But during that live stream, I was talking about how one of the players that the Sixers should at least look at, not draft, but look at, was Kasparas Jakucionis out of Illinois. And I said that, I gave my reasoning on that live stream, and I was talking about how, I think a really big point forward type of player could pair nicely next to Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain, given his ability to move the rock well, find the open man, have really good court vision, and play with pace. I've been watching Jakucionis a bit throughout this entire season, tuning into games, watching highlights and all of that. And I was really intrigued, man. I got to be honest. I was intrigued by his skill set. He really seemed to be a well-rounded player. That's what scouts were saying. That's what, guys around, the NBA community and just NBA draft gurus, that's what they're saying about him, that he was one of the more well-rounded players in the draft. Of course, had, some rough edges here and there, but was a decent scorer, putting up good numbers at Illinois, and was sure to be in the lottery. Some were even saying that he could be like a top 5 pick or something. And I was thinking, I don't know if the Sixers are going to get a top 3 pick or whatever, but if they were to get like number 5, number 6, number 4, could they pick Jakucionis in that spot, and could he be another franchise cornerstone for the Sixers? He's 18 years old. I think he's going to be 19 by the time the draft rolls around, so he's definitely a project for sure, but the Sixers are kind of entering a rebuild and, retooling a little bit, so I thought that having someone like him could really help out a lot. That was until I watched this game against Kentucky, Illinois v. Kentucky, and Jakucionis, to say the least, did not have the best performance. Now, this was not the make or break game for me at all, but just by doing more research into him and looking more at his flaws, this game really exemplified everything that is wrong with him as a prospect. Of course, he's still a project, and that does not mean he's going to be good in the NBA if he gets selected in this year's draft. But one of the plays that really stood out to me was this one. Shout out to David for recording it. Just getting stumped by a defender, and he had 6 turnovers in this game. And if you go look at his game log throughout the tournament, he had a bunch of turnovers. In fact, he had like 4 straight games where he had 6 turnovers, and that kind of made me look more into his flaws as a player. And I gotta say, man, I was kind of wrong about his outlook as a draft prospect. I don't really think the Sixers should be looking to draft him if they end up getting that pick. Of course, the draft didn't happen a day after that stream or whatever, and I would have adjusted my draft board or whatever. But I was definitely a little bit wrong about Jakucionis, I gotta admit. So yeah, 4 straight games, man, having 6 turnovers, and you can see some other ones too. 7 turnovers again. I might be nitpicking a little bit. But just the more I watched him, his highlights, and just how much he was struggling in that Kentucky game, there was this great post by Sam Ober who went over his stats in the tournament. Yeah, man, I just think it's his athleticism, really. I mean, he has shown to be a decent three-point shooter, been able to, put him up in volume, I think, like averaging like 5 threes on like 32 or I think percent shooting, which isn't terrible, but not like elite either, but definitely shows he can make some three-pointers. But in the 4 postseason games, he went 13 for 40, 32% from the field, 5 for 22 from 3, contradicting that prior point a little bit, 24 turnovers from 16 assists. So it really kind of did show that when he went up against some pretty decent competition, especially these long, athletic, ball hawk defenders, he couldn't blow past them. And I don't know how that is going to translate in the NBA, man, because he's going to be going up against some really solid defenders. And if you can't blow a guy off the dribble, you can't really create for yourself much or your teammates unless you're just some legendary shooter or whatever. And if you watch him, you can tell that he takes a lot of step-back shots, a lot of turnaround fadeaways, a bunch of, step-back threes and all of that. And sometimes they go in, but when they're not going in, he can really kind of be just this black hole in offense that is prone to making a lot of turnovers. So initially, I thought that, since you had Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain, 2 dominant scorers, or at least Maxey is right now, McCain can definitely have the potential to be one of the best scorers in the league. 2 really nice players scoring the rock. Who knows whether another good point forward type of guy could really help them out. And some Sixers fans were saying, they don't need another guard or whatever. And, that kind of makes sense. And there are some really good players who aren't guards in this draft that the Sixers could look at if they decide to trade down or whatever. But I just thought in this positionless game, having a big guard, 6'6", who could defend a little bit, that could help them out a lot. But Jakucionis didn't really show much promise on the defensive end either. Of course, he's still a project or whatever, but I kind of don't really think the Sixers should be looking at him anymore. So, if you just look at his numbers, man, he's been putting up decent ones, 15 points per game, 4.7 assists, over about 6 boards. So he is one of the he was projected to be one of the more well-rounded players in the league and has shown potential at being a really decent point forward who could definitely contribute in the NBA if he fixes up some of his flaws, maybe getting a quicker first step or whatever. But I just saw a bunch of trouble with his turnovers and just how often he relied on screens to get separation and all of that. He primarily made plays from the pick and roll, which is fine, but is that really going to be the focus of your entire offense when you got Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain too? They need the ball as well. You know what I'm saying? So, and the Sixers don't have any good big men whatsoever. Of course, they have a Dembona, who is kind of a project in of himself. We'll see if he develops further. I definitely think he will. I really like a Dembona. But Jakucionis, definitely a really flawed player. I don't know if the Sixers should take him in the draft. I will kind of be shifting my content a little bit more towards the NBA draft. Of course, I'm still going to be talking about the Sixers, but I think just with how much the Sixers have been tanking and the legit chances they have at getting a top 6 pick, it's going to be a lot of fun looking into these guys and seeing who's going to fit the best with the team. I thought it was Jakucionis, but, looking at some of these other guys like Con Knipple or Molly Watch, 7'2" center from Duke, I think those are definitely some better options. At the time, man, I thought that, Jakucionis could have been a decent prospect for the Sixers. But just after watching that Kentucky game and just his overall postseason in general, it kind of deterred me a little bit, and that might seem like a bit of an overreaction, but those were issues with Jakucionis that people were talking about earlier into the season. It's not like they just randomly popped out of nowhere. Those were really put on a spotlight during the during all March Madness, and I think he still has plenty of time to grow as a prospect. I don't really think the Sixers should really take a chance on him. I'll definitely shuffle my draft board a little bit. But we got to go to the rest of the Tankathon, see what is going on with the rest of the league. So the Sixers were able to lose against the Pelicans, and now they are only 3.5 games behind them in the leaderboard. So they're currently in number 5. The Brooklyn Nets lost to the Dallas Mavericks because of course they did, because the one night where Anthony Davis had to return, of course it had to be against the Brooklyn Nets, and the Nets got destroyed. And I gotta admit, man, the Nets are really good at tanking. Not gonna lie at all. Nets are a really good tanking team. But, Sixers, if there's one thing they're good at, it is tanking. So I hope the Sixers just continue to lose. And that just made me think more, honestly, about Jakucionis, because I really want the Sixers to get this pick, bro. I cannot describe just how badly this season has gone. I think any Sixers fan that has really endured the season, shout out to you. Massive respect for sticking through with this stupid team. But it made me think, more about Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain, man, as a duo. Like, I just don't view them as premier playmakers, premier passers like a Kay Cunningham, James Harden, Trae Young, Ja Morant. Could Tyrese Maxey maybe develop into that, or McCain? Sure. I mean, they're both still young. Maxey, when he went on his amazing stretch at the beginning of December, really showed a lot of promise as a playmaker, having, nights with a bunch of assists. He just sometimes is just really prone to having tunnel vision and not finding the open man. Just a lot of times he just takes a contested layup where he could have just dished it out, but he has had some decent playmaking performances, and Jared McCain can probably do the same as he, develops more. But I just thought that having a prospect like a Jakucionis is a big, fast point forward who could swing the rock to Maxey McCain curling off screens or whatever, that would really unlock the Sixers offense. And I still, just being completely realistic for a second, I don't know if the Sixers are going to be able to really take that next step if Maxey or McCain don't become really good playmakers. Like, to be, not a bad passer, but like not on like a James Harden, Trae Young level of passing, kind of like Steph Curry, you need to have so much gravity as a shooter to where the threat of you shooting is just so overpowering for the defense, and they got to keep eyes on you every single time, and it just makes life so much easier for your teammates. I don't know if Tyrese Maxey will ever have that much respect from defenders as like a Steph Curry or whatever, but Maxey he's actually just a great passer. I just think he can do a better job with his court vision and finding the open man more and just kind of making his teammates better, just with the way like Trae Young or James Harden, those fantastic flashy passes that they make, man. They're one of those players where you're watching their highlights, you try to predict what they're going to do, like try and predict their reads or whatever. It's just a lot of fun watching those guys play. And I might be a little bit biased because they are my favorite types of players in the league, just these high-powered, high-voltage, really good passers who just make their teammates better, and Nikola Jokic too. But of course, I always love my one-man armies and Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Tyrese Maxey. That's what he's shaping up to be. I think he's only still 24, 25. Still got plenty of time to grow. But I mean, who knows if the Sixers could really just embrace 3-point shooting? You know what I mean? I think that's like my more like overarching goal for the team. Of course, you can nitpick, certain guys on the roster or whatever, certain positions. But if the Sixers could really embrace 3-point shooting, because the Boston Celtics, love them or hate them, man, they really knew what they were doing when it came to roster construction and understanding the modern NBA. And I hope the Sixers try and follow that, man. I want to see them jack so many threes next season. I know 3-pointers don't really have a good reputation in the league for how it's ruining the game or how it's just super boring to watch, but Celtics fans seem to be having a lot of fun with their team. I think it'd be a lot of fun just to see Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain splashing trays left and right, and we'll see. I mean, you got Colin Knippel, really a good sharpshooter out of Duke. Went to a same university as Jared McCain, so maybe you might get that connection. Or if the Sixers get the number 1 pick, they could get none other than Cooper Flagg. And I'm not going to lie, man, looking at this Tankathon leaderboard, it might be coming closer than we think. They could be able to get that number 4 spot. It's probably not going to happen, but if they do, bro, 12.25% chance at number 1, 48% chance at the top 4. I think once you get into the top 4, you're guaranteed to have a top 6 pick. And there we go, number 3. And number 3 again. So, yeah, I mean, the Sixers, they, got some games left. It's definitely going to be a pretty painful stretch of basketball. Of course, you still got March Madness and all of that. I'm going to try and focus some more of my content regarding the NBA draft, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, man, that's pretty much all I got. I'm happy the Sixers lost this game. They almost ended up winning in the third quarter, at least, when they took that lead, thanks to Yabu and Ricky Council going nuts, just splashing threes. But the Pelicans eventually went on a run on their own, and the Sixers could just not recover. So yeah, I mean, I was kind of wrong about Jakucionis. I'll own up to that, even though I did not. I did say the Sixers should look into him. And, opinions can change over time. You know what I mean? Draft stock, constantly goes up and down. And there are plenty of prospects that I would be fine if the Sixers would end up selecting. And the more, digging in I do to this draft class, it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope that I hope the Sixers get this pick, man. I'm just being a dead horse at this point. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.